Hey everybody, and welcome to Behind the Score Sports. Here today with the special guest Kevin from SAMBAT Company, and we're here to talk about baseball bats and where the company started and different odds and end things that the company does that's different than other people. But we'll just jump right into it. Um, so the history of SAMBAT, like just give a little bit of where the company started, how it started with maple bats.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on. Happy to chat a little bit about Sambat and our company. So, Sambat started back in 1997. I mean, really, the foundation was laid in 1996 with our founder Sam Holman. Sam Holman was having a conversation at a bar with his buddy Bill McKenzie, downtown Ottawa here in Ontario, in Canada, and they were just chatting. And Bill McKenzie was a scout with the Colorado Rockies. Previously, had worked with the Expos, and they were just talking. And Bill said to Sam, "Sam, we're breaking a lot of bats this year." And Sam had a bit of experience as a hobby woodworker, really, but he also has worked as a stagehand for the National Arts Center downtown Ottawa. And Bill said, "Well, Sam, you should come up with something." So Sam thought about it and did some research. Ottawa is a great spot for research. This is the National Patent Library, and there's a couple of hundred patents that have to do with baseball bats, not necessarily wood specifically, metal and composite stuff, but there's a lot of research that Sam was able to do locally. And at the end of it, the quote that Sam always says is, "Well, I wasn't going to make a better bat or a better ash tree, so I better think of something different." And at home, Sam had been working on a railing, a banister for a staircase, and it was making out of maple. And he thought, well, maple is a denser wood. It's a harder wood than ash. And it's important to note that, almost 100% of bats at the time were made out of ash. So I thought maple's a denser wood. It's a harder wood. Maybe I'll try carving a maple bat. And he did. And he got a few local guys to try it out here in the Ottawa area. At the time, there was the AAA affiliate, the Ottawa Lynx, and then he was able to get a few players to try out the bat, and they liked it. It was a different feel, it was a different sound, and just felt different than an ash bat. And I thought, Sam, you got something here. So Sam made a few more bats and trucked it down the highway down to Toronto and talked his way into batting practice with Toronto, and got some big players of the day, Joe Carter and Carlos Delgado and Ed Sprague, to try his bat out in batting practice, and they liked the feel of it too. I mean, Joe Carter actually ordered some bats from Sam and started using them in games even just before we were officially approved to sell to Major League Baseball. So it was a pretty quick turnaround in terms of introducing maple to the game, and it really spread hugely from there. I'm sure we're going to get into all the different ways we've changed the game of baseball.
Well, that's very exciting, especially here in Toronto, and being a Blue Jays fan. It's definitely great to hear about Delgado, and definitely the way it came up. And it's interesting with the maple bat, because it almost seemed like nobody had ever thought about that or even looked into it until that. And it's just interesting how Sam, just a conversation at a local bar, it turned into a business idea and a great adventure for him.
Oh no, certainly a great adventure. And I mean, it's funny, a lot of we even say nowadays, over 20 years later through the company, a lot of the best ideas come from just sort of an innocent conversation between staff members. What about this, or maybe we should try something like that. And suddenly, whether it's a month later or 2 years later, it's the next big thing. We sell wedding bats. So a lot of people buy them for their groomsmen as a unique groomsman present. You can get amazing pictures on your wedding day if you have a bunch of guys or gals out in the ball diamond in suits and holding really nice bats. And really, that came about from our president and owner Arlene saying, "Hey, I think this would be a really good idea." And some of the guys in the factory went, "I'm not so sure. Make them." And we've been making and selling them for years now, and they're really popular, and they're great ideas. So it can be the smallest idea that really turns into a great success.
Well, that's always great. And even being a baseball fan, it's always great to get into these things behind the scenes and find out how things started and where things came from. But so we'll get in and maybe talk a little bit about why maple bats are so great. Like you said, solution to broken bats, which was a big thing growing up and even watching baseball. You'd see bats shatter all the time. So, but just a little bit of why maple is a great way to go.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's part of the game of baseball, right? When you have guys throwing 100 miles an hour, and you don't make contact on the barrel, it doesn't really matter what you make it out of. It's possible that a bat will break. The advantage of maple over ash in particular is that it won't flake. Ash, is a good species of wood, but it's not as dense, and the grain is more open in comparison to maple. So even if an ash bat doesn't break or crack, the tendency over time is that the grains will sort of separate and flake, whereas maple won't do that. It's also a different feel. Ash will tend to be a little bit more flexible than maple. Maple is not gonna flex. So when you make contact, it really feels solid, and you can hear the difference too. If you go, back to back in BP with an ash bat versus a maple bat, you can even hear the difference in the sound. So a lot of players really prefer that solid, strong feel of a maple bat, and it's one of the denser woods out there that it's possible to consistently make baseball bats out of. So part of the reason it's so popular, we see not just at the pro ranks, but pretty well everywhere wood bats are used nowadays. It's over 80% of people that do use maple bats, and it all started with Sam. Being the first to have maple approved for Major League play. That's why our full name is the original Maple Bat Corporation.
That's just so great, to be able to hear about different maple things and how that came about. And so you were talking about different things mentioned around the shop, and I happened to find an article in a blog on the website that was talking about the term Pro Select and what that means. So maybe we could go into a little bit about Pro Select. And it's, from what I was saying here, that when you make bats at a pro level, like sometimes we all know things happen, or there's other things where they extend their shipment or whatever, but maybe go into discussion about Pro Select and what that means.
Well, Pro Select for us is just a term that colleague Ben came up with a few years ago for a particular group of bats. And what it specifically is if a pro orders, they're typically ordering 6, 12, 18, 24 bats at a time. And there's a specific model at a specific weight. And it's just the same as you or anybody else can order a specific custom bat at a specific length, specific weight, specific model. And we're trying to make that particularly around the weight for your particular order. So, if we're trying to make 12 of the same bat, we might make one that's a little bit heavier, a little bit lighter than that player or, you as a custom customer particularly ordered. So we don't want to send that bat to you. It's a perfectly good bat, but it's not what you ordered. So, there's no sense in wasting that bat. So we shuffled them into what we call Pro Select, which are, one-offs. And usually it's just, hey, this player ordered a 30 1 ounce bat, and this bat is 30 ounces. So that's not good for that player, but it's good for a lot of other people. So we were just trying to brainstorming back several years ago now. What should we call these bats? And been through Pro Select, and it's just sort of funny that you see that term used, all around the wood baseball market nowadays, just from a conversation here at the factory.
Well, that brings into kind of the meat of our podcast here. As I actually ordered, as you know, a bat of my own, as we have here.
Look at that.
And got my name engraved with Behind the Score Sports here in the end. So definitely like this one. This is actually, with your website there, you could find this is actually the retail version of the same model that Barry Bonds used. So that was one big thing for me, as he was my favorite player growing up, watching him hit balls out into the base. So, but that's definitely one. So we'll get into talking about just when you're ordering a custom bat, like different things that you got to look and consider when making a bat. First would be the model. Like, you got to really find a bat that's suited to you and what you're looking for. And just for the first one here would be the knob. So just different, go into a little bit of detail of the different knob choices and what somebody might be looking for that way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, many youth players are used to swinging metal or composite bats that have what we call very traditional, regular round knobs on them. Kind of like a circle on the end of a stick, right? As you come into the top hand, or the bottom hand, I guess I should say. So we make a lot of wood bats with a very similar knob to that style, just because that's what players are used to. But there are a lot of other shapes, and generally it's defined as a flared knob, where instead of being a straight stick into a circle, you sort of have a little bit of a transition into the knob. And the extreme case is like the knob that you have there on the R2K1, which is a really large circumference. It's almost like a big triangle into the knob. And the idea behind different shapes of knob, different flare degrees, is just the comfort level on your bottom hand. So you can distribute pressure over a larger area on your hand. There's a lot of ball players that have hamate bone issues, hamate being a bone in your hand right here, that depending how you hold the bat, you get jammed. You can really hurt or bruise that area of your hand, or even break the hamate bone. So different flared shapes can help distribute the pressure over a larger area, and it's just more comfortable. We all have different hand shapes and sizes, so it makes sense that there's different shapes of knobs, and that goes into the handle size as well, the handle thickness. We have handle thicknesses everywhere from 7/8 of an inch at the thinnest, all the way up to over an inch, which you think about it, that's not that big, but then you put your hand around it, and you can really tell how it feels. So a lot of the time, if we're just talking, I apologize for the phone in the background, but a lot of times, if you have a young player, all they're used to is a very traditional knob. So we have some specific models. The SAM-5 is a transition model. The CE1 is a transition model. The MMO, having very traditional knobs that players kind of pick up and go, oh, this is comfortable. But a lot of the time, if you have a few bats to choose from, pick up one with a flared knob and see how it feels. Because even things like that large knob on the bat you have, there's a larger volume of wood there that can help counterbalance the weight of the barrel, and make the bat feel more balanced well. So certainly one big thing is the knob shape.
Well, I definitely noticed that this one, I feel comfortable with the bigger knob of the bong, because I got larger hands. So I noticed with the steel bats I was using, or the aluminum bats we were using for slow pitch when I was playing that, I noticed the knob on the end, sometimes your hand would slip or whatever. So it's, for me, that's a nice knob, because then you can keep your hands in the same position at all times, and it just has a better feel for me that way. So we'll get in. The next one would be, well, you touched base on the handle there. There's different thicknesses, your thick handles, so it's more of a comfort feel there for that. And then just kind of the length and weight. Like I noticed you have a sizing chart, so you can base it based on batter's height and weight, and kind of figure out what in the ballpark that you are there.
It's a good starting point for sure. I mean, we have a size guide, and it's just really a starting point. I mean, the it's funny because if you're brand new to baseball, you need a starting point. But a lot of the time, if you're looking for a wood bat, you've swung something before, whether it's a wood bat or metal or composite. So you have something that you're used to. So if you have that base knowledge of, hey, I have this, 31-inch youth bat that's a drop 10, but now I'm 15 and I've just grown 2 feet, then you might want a slightly longer bat, slightly heavier bat, and sometimes the rules dictate it, right? In a lot of the world, once you hit high school age, whether you're swinging wood or not, you have to be swinging so it's part of it is rule and regulation based, but really there's a good starting point is the chart. Now, one thing we always say on the phone and in person when we get to do that is if you're not built like a pro player, maybe don't try and swing that pro player's bat, right? I am not 6'5" and 250 pounds of muscle, right? So I don't know if I should be swinging the same length and weight of that pro bat. And most pro players, if there's an average length and weight, is a 34-inch bat that's what we call a drop 2. So that would be 32 ounces. So, for the most part, most mere mortals are swinging something shorter and perhaps a little bit lighter than that. So it gives us a good starting point. But then it's not just the length and the weight of the model, it's how that model feels, whether it's more balanced or whether it's more barrel heavy, or some people in the baseball world like to say end loaded. So, the same weight and the same length of bat can feel way different depending on the model that you pick. So a model like the MMO, for example, that we make, one of the popular models, is pretty well balanced in comparison to a model like the Melky 53 that we make, which, on the surface, both have, traditional round knobs, similar size handles, similar overall size barrels, but the Melky is going to feel a lot more barrel heavy. So if you're a less experienced player, particularly with wood, usually worth looking at the more balanced models. If you're a really big, strong guy that hits for power, hits home runs a lot, then generally speaking, you prefer something a little bit more barrel heavy. So it's something to take into consideration also is the shape of the profile, the shape of the model, which ends up making the bat feel more balanced or not.
Which is really great to touch on that, because the next part we move into would be the cup on the end, which also has to do with the weight and whether you're balanced and how it just feels in your hands. So we're going to talk about different types of cups and what the advantage and disadvantages maybe are of each. So we'll start with the no cup.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I really encourage everyone to check out our blog post that's entitled "What is a Cup?" So even if you just search that on the internet, "What is a cup baseball bat?" it'll probably come up with our blog post. But because there's a bit of a misconception out there about what a cup does. So first of all, a cup is a little depression at the end of the bat, so the barrel end, that you see on a lot of baseball bats. Yeah, you've got a good example there. And they can be different depths. So if there's basically no cup, where it's essentially flat, that's what we call a no cup. And that is going to have the weight distributed most towards the end of the bat. So most towards the end of the barrel is going to make the bat feel the most barrel heavy. And that's really what a cup does. The misconception is that all a cup is doing is making the bat lighter. And certainly, if you take a bat that is not cupped and you cup it, meaning you take wood away, yes, the bat gets lighter. but that's not the general purpose. The general purpose is to change the balance point of the center of gravity. Basically, the deeper we put that cup, the more it pushes the center of gravity back towards the knob, so back towards the hands of the batter, and it makes the bat feel more balanced. To change the weight of the bat, you change the piece of wood you start with. You change the billet. So I can make the exact same model of bat at the exact same weight with or without a cup, but that bat will feel different with or without a cup because of where the center of gravity is. So no cup is the most barrel heavy. A full cup, which is about an inch deep, is the most balanced. And we also do a half cup, which is about a ½ inch deep, which is kind of, right in the middle. Some people like it as a Goldilocks, but I will say that not only in professional baseball where we get, statistics every year, but also general, wood bat swingers, the majority of people, certainly over that 80% mark, again, prefer at least a half cup, with most of those being full cups. One other thing I want to mention, our cup in particular is actually patented. It's a special shape. So if you look at most of our competitors, their cup shape is sort of like a triangle. So if this is the top of the bat, it's a triangle, and you end up with that cut going down. So you end up with a really thin wall at either side, and then it's thicker as you go down into that triangle. Whereas ours is a straight edge all the way down. So you maintain thickness of that cup wall all the way around, and it maintains integrity all the way through the end of the bat. So that's actually unique to SAMBAT, something Sam patented a long, long time ago.
Well, that's something cool and interesting that I didn't read there and didn't know about. So that's real awesome. So the next one would be, now that we've decided what bat we want, what kind, the barrel, the handle, knob, is actually getting into the personalization, like I said, with my name and the podcast Behind the Score Sports etched into it. And I'm sure there's other people that have done other things, and like you said, for weddings and stuff, there could be different dates or whatever somebody might want to put into that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you can think of it, generally somebody has put it on a bat. Not every bat is customized. It's kind of special when you can get something customized specifically to you. We do have bats, ready to ship, stock bats that are not personalized, not engraved, but they do still say the model name on it, and a lot of them have our slogan on them, Rito Crusher. But if you go the custom bat route, there's space on the barrel. Generally, the first line would say the model name. And then you kind of have two lines to work with, where a lot of people will put their name, they'll put their team name, specifically the team they play for. You're not able to put a full pro team name, but you can put the team you play for. A lot of people will put nicknames. We see a lot of a lot of funny nicknames come through from the custom side, and then certainly the wedding side of things. We do baby bats. It's a pretty neat thing for a newborn. So you see, the date the baby was born. You can see the specs of the baby too. That sounds kind of funny to say, but you can see, a lot of people ask, you have a newborn, how much did they weigh? How long were they? So you see that engraved on the bat too. Certainly pretty much anything you can think of, we've seen requested, and most of it we can do.
Well, that's I'm sure it's pretty interesting with all different variations people might think of for different events or whatever, make that really interesting. Because as you were mentioning there too, like you do all different types of bats, the T-ball bats, the mini bats, the trophy bats. Like there's an endless thing for what you could do with a bat, like for different things. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you just want a little mini bat to have in the office and sort of hold and play with, we definitely do that. Anything from a regular mini to I have even right here what we call a desktop mini. Right there.
that's
Turns
awesome.
into a glove mallet pretty well as well to work in your glove, or we make we call it a fish whacker too for the boat.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anyways, that really is the topic 7 that we were going to talk about, was different creative ways, like you said, for ceremonies and weddings, and just the all around fun thing for different people to play with, and depending on what you're wanting to do.
Well, tournaments, is it nicer to get, a plastic trophy or maybe a customized wood mini bat, right? So it's kind of neat, specifically for a baseball tournament. We do a lot of that too. So, if anybody ever has any ideas, we're open to hear it and give it a go.
And it was different looking at the logos you guys put on, because you actually got a one that's kind of got a Canada theme to it as well, along with a whole bunch of different colors.
Oh, certainly. Well, it's part of the customization, right? You pick not only the handle color, the barrel color, but you also pick the logo color, and the logo color typically matches the color of the inscription, so that it matches. If you do different colors, it doesn't necessarily look the best that it could. So yeah, our logo here, like the black one behind me, we do all sorts of different colors. We actually print all of our own decals here in the factory. It's one of the things that I do actually. So it's kind of fun coming up with some unique designs, and certainly the country themes, Canada, US, Venezuela, Dominican, that we do are popular, and it sort of shows a little bit of national pride.
Well, we all know when it comes to sports, one of the biggest thing, no matter what sport you're playing, it's everybody's playing for your home country is definitely one of the biggest things that a lot of people say is a big accomplishment. That's the one thing you want to do, is to be able to play for your country. So it would definitely be suiting that people would be looking for that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we see the Olympics coming up with baseball back, and we see things like the World Baseball Classic. It's a pretty neat opportunity for those players.
All right, well, that would pretty much covers the topics that I had put down for us to talk about today. Like we talked about the history of Sam, had started in the bar there, and all over broken bats and how they could maybe fix that issue or curb it. Why you use maple for different reasons, like you said, the grain, and there's different advantages depending on what you use. And then we went in talking about uh, different bats and players that swung those, and different pros and the pro select, and just being able to customize it. So I think we pretty much hit on the big topics there. So I'll give you a chance to kind of send it home with anything else you'd like to add, or anything interesting to finish it off here.
Yeah, no, well, it's certainly been good to chat with you. It's we chat about baseball bats all day long. It's super fun. It's one of those games that everybody plays once they think about baseball bats a little bit. Is anytime you're watching ball on TV, seeing what bats players are swinging. We're happy to be associated and have a lot of pros swing our bat. So you have a good opportunity of seeing a lot of players swing them. If you're into the video game market, the MLB The Show video game, we've been in that game for the last number of years, so it's kind of a fun thing to look at too if you're playing video games. But no, I encourage anybody that has any questions about wood bats to send us an email, give us a call, and we're happy to help anybody out with their wood bat needs.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up, because that was one thing you had mentioned about that I forgot to bring up, because I actually played the game, and one of the big ones on my team right now would be Luke Voigt, that you had mentioned about, that plays first base. Unfortunately, he's working his way back from being injured there at the beginning of the season, but you said that you guys now got him for a signature series.
Yeah, we have the Luke Voigt Signature Series, a couple of different models that Luke has worked with us with. He's one of those guys that has worked through a couple of different models in his career. He's been ordering bats from us for a number of years now, and changed things up a few times. But no, it's he's very good hitter, as evidenced by his performance, not just last year, but in the previous number of years. And we're hoping to see him back. Hope he does well from recovery from his injury.
Well, again, I'd like to thank you for coming on. As I said, you guys are the first ones to get an episode here on the podcast when it comes to interviews and whatever. So that's pretty cool. And I look forward to keeping up with SAMBAT and get into some other discussions about things going forward. I was thinking about maybe ordering another one as well somewhere here soon. So, but I'll definitely keep in touch, and maybe we can do this again sometime in the near future.
Sounds great. Usually when we do this kind of thing, you have a million questions right after we hang up. So if anything comes up, reach out. We'll be happy to do it again.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.